No. Oh,
No,
you're over here.
Holly.
I was like, nope, I counted.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Awesome. Brought you here all today. Like I said before I was elected, want to change the culture a little bit and make sure that people had access to the department. I know there's a lot of questions about On Patrol Live, most likely. But to ask us questions, and one of the main reasons also is I want to make sure that we're always evolving as a department and making sure, not specifically speaking about the last administration, but what we can do better. I know all of you have deadlines. I know all of you have stories that you have to get going. I know sometimes I'm busy, or executive staff, which you'll have access to, will be busy also. But make sure that you have the information that you need for your jobs. At the same time, I have a PIO team, which you've met, in our new community engagement team. But making sure that you can openly ask questions and have someone at least as a point of contact. And I don't want to be adversarial towards the media at all. I know there will be good questions, tough questions. There will be good times, and there will also be bad times and things that people don't agree with me on everything. But I want to be totally open with you, and I'll have my executive staff here that you already know. But I'll let you all ask me questions, and I'll answer them appropriately.
I guess, can we start out with On Patrol Live, kind of get that out of the way, like your decision to kind of step back from that show?
Yes. So my decision was I want to focus on crime. I spoke to some of the personnel in the last administration. I don't want to be scheduling On Patrol Live. I know people think that's access to the department, and some people think that's true transparency to the department. I'll agree and disagree. With short on the people power that we have, I don't want to be scheduling certain people for certain shifts. I want to just focus on our goals and missions of the department for now. Not saying that we will totally go away from On Patrol Live. I told Matthew Gates at the time, who's the executive producer, I believe, that in April we'll revisit it. I know that there's pros and cons to shows. I've had calls from different departments from all over the nation, and they told me the pros and cons. And actually, Texas doesn't even allow any shows like that to be allowed into their state to be filmed. So not saying I'm going that route, but just don't want to focus on that right now.
That's fair.
So you said until April, so in the meantime, between now and April, what are you gonna boggle with to see if you wanna do that or not?
I want to ask the deputies that were actually on the show and how it affected their work life at the same time, and evaluate everything. And I want to use the totality of everything, not just from personal life, but what they did at work, how it was with scheduling, what they liked about the show, what they didn't like about the show, and then come down to a decision with me whether or not I want to continue it at a later time. I might not continue it, I might, but I want to be able to speak with everybody. I've been in office for 5 days, and I told Matthew Gates before, hey, I'm not going to continue the show, here's why. The same thing that I'm telling you. I want to be totally open with people while I'm doing it. I hear people in my ear and know this has nothing to do with any political decision. That's kind of a little bit of nonsense, to be completely upfront with you. This has to do about with our personnel and the goals that I want for this department.
Taking a look at your all's relationship with APD in the past, what are your all's plans, working with them to really fight crime? Are there any big changes that you see coming with all of that?
Huge changes, and the huge change is actually communication. I had lunch with the chief, Harold Medina, yesterday, and the mayor, and we discussed MOUs, things that we can work on together, what we can do better. But I want to have that open relationship and conversation. Again, we're not going to agree on everything, but the bottom line is just not about the two departments communicating. The bottom line is all of you in the community to keep us safe. And I think if we're a united front, and that's why I went over to support DA Bregman, a united front, I really think, and it's not party aligned at all, and it shouldn't have anything to do with politics, it's a nonpartisan issue, is we are all a victim of the crime here. And people want a response from law enforcement no matter what color uniform it is. They want it to be efficient, and they want it to be professional, and they want results. That's the bottom line.
And speaking with you guys going hand in APD, they're investigating right now 4 elected leaders whose homes were shot at or businesses shot at. Are any of those in your jurisdiction? Are you helping at all with those investigations?
Yes, like I said, like united front. We'll make sure that's a multi-agency response, whether that's with us, the Albuquerque Police Department, our federal partners, and also the New Mexico State Police. And it has to deal with any elected official, whether it's city council, whether it's county commissioners. That's our responsibility to make sure that they're protected. We know that there's going to be some violence from elections. We've seen that go on around the nation. That's something I was prepared for before I took the seat. That's something that the Sheriff's Department, it's very important to me to make sure that we have plans ahead of time and to have contingencies to deal with that, because things can become very rapidly evolving. We want to make sure that we're protecting those and making sure that we find the offenders. And again, it's part of the whole thing of crime. And then when politicians are involved in it, it becomes even more focused, which is a good and bad thing. What happens is everybody's been a focus of this crime, and a lot of people been a victim to the crime, so it's bringing more attention when it gets to elected officials. Yeah, this is more serious than we thought. If they didn't think it was to begin with, we have to do something about what's going on here.
The 4 areas where that happened, are any of them in SO jurisdiction, or are they all in APD's jurisdiction?
I would say they're all in our jurisdiction because it's Bernalillo County. So, but in terms of that, there's some in the city, there are some in the sheriff's office. Like I said, I'm very responsible for the county commissioners. So we're making sure that they're protected also. I mean, I won't give every operation that we're doing, but we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, because if this person is doing this to an elected official, I can't imagine what this person has done in the past and who it is, or if it's a group of people, or if it's even a network, and what they're doing in the community that we live in.
And one thing that was left over from the past administration now coming forward, the helicopter. Under Sheriff Corrin, big part of that. Aaron, I don't know if you want to speak to this being the undersheriff or one of the undersheriffs. Is there a plan moving forward? I know the current pilot, when we spoke to a few weeks ago at the helicopter thing that he was at, he was hoping to be in the air, fully ready to go April-ish or so. Is that still the plan, or is there something new when it comes to that unit?
You want to address it?
As it stands right now, the helicopter aspect of MASU, which is Metropolitan Air Support Unit, is being suspended. But that's only the helicopter aspect of it. For all of you to understand, MASU is not just the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. It also part with BCFD and UNMH. We do have other programs such as mountain rescue, rope rescue. We're moving forward with these programs. We are continuing with the training. We continue the partnership. But as far as the helicopter, we felt that it was needed for right now to suspend the operations of the helicopter. There is a pending investigation from the NTSB, and we want to know until at least give that time to be either completed or a little bit move forward before we actually make the decision to have the helicopter airborne again.
So the sergeant who is supposed to be the pilot and get his commercial license by April, if he still fulfills that, he will not be flying until that investigation is over. That
is correct. There is another aspect of his training that has nothing to do with our helicopter. We're moving forward with that plan. He is the continuation of this program. He is the one that has the most training as of now. So we're moving forward with that, because by the time that we, as an administration and Sheriff Allen makes the decision that it is time that we have everything in place for the helicopter to once again to be airborne, we'll have that person already trained.
And to further go on that, whether or not the investigation is complete or not, that could take a while. At the same time, this is our time and our chance to make sure that we evaluate and reevaluate every policy and procedure. We don't even know what happened. We don't even know if the mistake is ours. We don't know if it could be something that we don't know about. We want to make sure as an administration we start not from ground zero, but to make sure that this program moves forward, but we do it correctly and do it the right way. A lot of people are also forgetting to make sure that we're also honoring the families that were still here. That's very important to me, and I said that before. Being able to speak with them, their concerns. Larry was a great pilot. All of his qualifications will take years. At the same time, we need to make sure not only the pilot that we have now, what's the succession plan behind that person to make sure this program's always moving forward and that we're making sure we're training our personnel from within.
So just to clarify on that one, these NTSB investigations take a couple of years to follow through with.
Correct.
So you're saying more than likely it's going to be a couple of years before?
No, not what I'm saying at all. We want to get closer to that investigation being completed. We don't know when it's going to be done. You're correct. It could take 2 or 3 years. What we want to make sure is with our policies and procedures, and if they contact us, and if they do indeed give us information, can we correct that immediately? I don't want to have the air unit go back up and it's something that is serious enough for us to ground it again. I want to make sure that we're reevaluating, making sure that we're continuing with services and make sure it's efficient. I want to ground it or suspend it, and then it goes back up, suspend it again. I want to make sure it's efficient, we can keep moving forward and in a positive direction.
That makes sense.
I know when I talked to the former sheriff, he was talking about a plan to possibly ask for funding from county commissioners to get a new helicopter or 2 helicopters. The one that we lost did a whole lot for the county. Is that still a plan that you have, to ask for money to possibly get a bigger and better helicopter than the one you currently have now?
Yes, and answer all the questions. Everything's on the table. One of the biggest things, though, is I think that we need to also share services with Albuquerque Police Department. Rescue, and whether it serves the community correctly and helps people, that's one of my main concerns of what I want to do, and that's what I took the oath for. One of my main concerns also is, should it be a little bit more patrol-based? We're seeing the drag racing and everything else that's going on. Rescue is very important, but do we need to balance that a little bit? Does it need to be 60-40, 70-30? That's why I said we're doing a review of the policies and procedures to see which direction we're going. And if we do need to share a hangar with Albuquerque Police Department, do we need to share mechanics? Do we need to share airtime? What a lot of people need to understand also is the helicopter will have to go down for maintenance for a certain amount of time. When it's down, I don't want there to be where there's no air coverage at all for the Bernalillo County area. Can APD supplement? Can we supplement them? Can the state police supplement? Again, making sure that everything's efficient.
But right now, there won't be air coverage for the Bernalillo County area.
The Albuquerque Police Department is up, and I have another meeting with the city to see what coverage they have. As far as air coverage and also search and rescue, by statute, that's the New Mexico State Police also. We can always ask for their assistance. But as far as for Bernalillo County right now, there is no air coverage specifically with our department.
The last administration did several warrant roundups in like the Southeast Area Command, and I mean obviously Bernalillo County is your jurisdiction, but it was a little controversial at times. And I was curious if you were going to continue those, or if you were looking at those, or.
Well, that's something that, as a sheriff, I need to do with warrants. I mean, we've been seeing, and all of you have been reporting all the warrants that are still outstanding. There's so many aspects to it. And when you look at the different levels, many aspects also as far as a warrant roundup is, I keep talking about data analysis, and I can't say it enough. And, you know, warrants are all over the place. But at the same time, we need to get those criminals off the streets that are reoffending. The violent repeat offenders are driving me insane. But you have to continue to serve warrants and get them out of the system. How we do that, we're going to be meeting with the Albuquerque Police Department today and a bunch of other law enforcement entities, because I really believe we have to work together because there's so many. You can't just do one warrant roundup on a Friday afternoon and then you don't see another one for 2 months down the road. In between that time, how many more warrants are being entered into the system? I also have to look at, on the civilian side of people that are entering warrants, do I have enough personnel there to make sure that it's efficient, that we're processing those on time, and what the delay is, and to make sure we speed up that process. There might be a violent offender that's outstanding that we don't know about, that's not entered to the system, and a deputy does a traffic stop or comes into contact and they don't even know because it hasn't been entered into the system. That's something that I have to look at, and that's something that has been a problem for years, honestly.
Sheriff, we can talk about transparency a little bit. I know you invited us here to be transparent. The last administration, we had issues with transparency. We found out about homicides 4, 5, 6 days later instead of the day of. Is that something you are trying to change to keep us more in the loop? If so, how do you plan to do that?
It's already in the works. So in reference to the network, and that's why I had you all here to tell us what we're doing wrong, what we can do better. At the same time, to make sure when we have a homicide that you're notified. And we all know there's a crime scene, and everybody's afraid that media is going to go over a crime scene. That is not the case. I've dealt with it for years. It's just a matter of you being notified and ask appropriate questions. You have news coverage to cover. The community needs to know. At the same time, that also goes into engaged community policing, which I talk about, is that's a hot spot right now in the city. Avoid the area. Also, there's an outstanding subject: is the community at risk or are they not? That's something that all of you help the Sheriff's Department. You're our eyes and ears also. Why would I not, as the sheriff, use you and utilize you all as a tool to get that information out to the community?
You know, we've talked a lot about like long-term goals, like getting Metro back up and funding. Do you have any like short-term goals that you want to tackle like immediately now that you've just been 5 days into office?
The immediate goal is the data analysis and fixing our website. I looked at it again last night, and it's very irritating that the public can't access any stats. A lot of people and businesses that are even moving in here They don't even know, hey, I'm buying a building in this area of town, what is the crime like? We don't even have that. If I was a business owner, I'd be quite irritated, because I have to make a financial decision whether or not I want to do business with the city or not. And we know that we need to drive economic development in Bernalillo County. We want people to come here, we want people to feel safe. I grew up here, I went to West Mesa High School. Again, I keep bringing up, I live in the Ventana Ranch area. With the drag racing and the crime, I witness it probably at least 2 or 3 times a week. And I couldn't wait to be sworn in and get a marked unit in my uniform again so I could start doing that myself. And I get my radio today, and it's going to happen. You're going to see me out there with our people. That's one immediate plan. Also, this was another immediate plan to be transparent with all of you, because I know some of the obstacles. I don't want the Sheriff's Department to be adversarial, but I also want your suggestions on when do you need that story as opposed to not ruining an investigation. I think the terms of saying it's under investigation, we can't comment on it, are kind of going by the wayside these days. Need to be a little bit more transparent on why and be more specific and articulate about it. The other plans also, recruiting and retention. I'm looking at these cameras. Please come work for the Sheriff's Department. We need you. We need more people power than you can imagine. That's also because of not just the crime rate, but to make sure that we're handling it efficiently, and that it also means investigations. I think when I was getting sworn in, PD had their first homicide, and it was 5 minutes into my swearing in. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And then the next morning, we have a homicide. That's irritating as heck for me, and we need to be more proactive with policing to start getting these offenders the heck out of here.
Do you have any stats on like where you guys are at staffing wise so far?
We're low. The attrition rate's always usually medium to high when you get a new administration, no matter what's going on. We're short. I know we're short, and I'll give you a number. I know at least around 20 to 23 deputies, and that could be growing. We are looking at what we're going to do not only to fill the seat for Class 45 and new cadets. We'll also be providing a lateral program, but we're in the middle of looking at curriculum and making sure how we do that correctly. We've had a lot of interest, but we want to make sure that we're, per se, not robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I don't want to take 25 Albuquerque Police Department people to put them here. That doesn't help the city. How do I limit that? Where are other people coming from? And at the same time, everybody's always weary of a lateral program because of what they think the baggage they're bringing from their department. I can understand their concern, but at the same time, it's very offensive. I was a lateral coming from the New Mexico State Police, and I believe I've had a pretty successful career and did well here. It's a great department to work for. And if you're in law enforcement, I don't know why you wouldn't want to work in Bernalillo County, because we do have a crime crisis. That's something that every law enforcement, why they enter the profession, wants to put a dent in and make a difference in their community.
I know a lot of BCSO serve also as task force officers. Is there any concern that that kind of further makes things tight for staffing and coverage? And
It does, and over probably the last 6 or 7 months, that staffing with the task force officers has actually came down. Whether or not when people are leaving, we're going to be doing some promotions here at the end of the month. The question for me is, do I fill those task force officers' positions? We haven't made a complete decision on that. Again, I told you earlier, the efficiency of investigation with all these homicides, we do need our federal partners, I'm telling you. There's a lot of things going behind the scenes as we're talking right now. Do we need those federal partners? Do we need to pull those people and put them out into the field? I have to see how many other retirements we have by the end of the month. Do we need to put a suspension on certain programs? A lot of people are forgetting just not the task force officers, but violent crimes, homicides, special victims unit. Everybody's forgetting about child crimes. White collar crimes. There's a lot of people out there that they're not just businesses, but white collar crimes are going on. How do we investigate those efficiently? And at the same time, does it go all the way to adjudication? And if it doesn't, how do we get there so these people aren't empowered and reoffending during these white collar crimes, property crimes, narcotics? There's so many other aspects that go to just task force officers.
If you could name the top 3 issues the county is facing in your eyes when it comes to either crime, sex crime, what are the top 3 things you think the county is really struggling with right now?
As far as I'd say recruiting and retention, that's number 1. 2 is the fentanyl crisis that we have. That's something I need to talk to not only the district attorney's office, but the U.S. attorney's office also. And then the homicides with violent crimes. And I would say within that also the gun violence we're seeing. And I've told everybody I'm worried about 14 to 18-year-old offenders. I've been asked already by a couple representatives on whether or not we should look into bringing the party patrol back. We've seen a couple homicides involved with children at parties, and then there's some type of gun violence there. And I know personally Nicole and a lot of other people that we speak to, even in the county, to where their families were victims of the gun violence. That's something, not only a legislative process, but how do we do that, not long-term, how do we do that tomorrow, and how do we affect it? Where do we direct our patrol? It's just not about laws. Everybody will talk about Second Amendment, but how do we enforce the laws that we have, and how do we improve on those if we do actually have new laws in reference to
So
that?
party patrol is something you may be interested in.
It is, definitely.
I know you worked for the homicide unit for a long time. I was curious, do you know, is 20 homicides in a year the
No.
most you've heard of for BCSO?
Oh, I haven't seen that probably since around 2007.
Okay. So
That is very high, and I believe we're at 23 or 26. We're in the 20s. We shouldn't be there at all. Even 3 is too many for me. Even 1 is too many for me. But that is very high. At the same time, do I need to put another case agent in there to stay up on those cases? We know, being in homicide, homicides branch out so far. And that's one of the reasons, Ms. Lindinger, you asked me some of the top priorities I have. We do have to look at just not social work, but things such as the violent intervention program. If you think about it from a detective standpoint, when you have a homicide investigation and you know that somebody's going to retaliate with a firearm, or they're a previous felon with a firearm, you know as a detective, man, I'm not going to be able to focus on my homicide because now I just opened another case that takes my focus off away from the homicide. The violence intervention program gives that detective another tool for them to focus. I'm looking at every avenue I can, whether it's a field deputy, detective and SVU, homicide, violent crime. What tool and resource can I give them, not to just be successful, but to focus on what their job description is, so we can solve these homicides and get an offender into custody.
You talked about recruiting being one of your top 3 issues with the county. So, you know, with a new sheriff comes new rules. Not everyone in your department probably voted for you.
Mhm.
So what is your pitch for people who are debating whether to join you or APD or even stay with your department? What is your pitch to them to keep them?
Law enforcement and the community need you. The pitch is, there is not and I'm biased, I have not worked a better job than this. It's something different every day. You literally make a difference every day in somebody's life. You make split-second decisions, whether that's unfortunately a deadly force encounter or something more positive on going to a child's event or a community event. This is a very rewarding job. Everybody talks about how dangerous it is and how stressful it is. It is indeed. But a lot of people forget not only a blessing, but what a rewarding benefit it is to see the outcome of a case from beginning to end and make a difference in somewhere that you live, and to actually be a role model for people growing up to want to be a police officer. That's how we also recruit. But all the problems that you're all, or in questions that you're asking me, look at all the problems and issues you have to deal with. Who would not want a gamut of those problems to be able to try to come up with a solution for it?
Sure, staying on recruiting, laterals, in the past, to become a lateral, Bernalillo County, you really can't just become a lateral, you had to go through a full academy. Are you gonna continue that, or are you looking to change that?
I'm looking to change that. Going through, if you're already a certified law enforcement officer in the state of New Mexico, personally, everybody will talk about, hey, we want you to have the culture of the sheriff's department, so you need to go through a full academy. Well, you're already a certified law enforcement officer. On the different part of the spectrum is, hey, you only need to be trained since you're lateral in the high aspect areas of firearms, driving, defensive tactics, use of force. You need a hybrid approach to that, because you have to think of, if you get someone from the Albuquerque Police Department, and I use this comparison, and someone from Union County, you're gonna have 2 different, not cultures, but training where they came from. What are they lacking, and what do they need to make sure that when they go on the field training officer program, which we are changing, what do they need to be a successful deputy? I will never lower standards, and I always make sure that everybody is trained coming out of the academy. I've warned people for years and been training for so long, and then when I did it at CNM, do not lower your standards for numbers over quality. I would rather have 6 qualified people than 10 other people, making it a total of 16 that I have to worry about down the road as far as civil rights and things of that are concerned. So we're looking at bringing the academy and cutting that in half. I'm looking anywhere from a 4 to 6 to 8 to 12-week program. Once I get the rest of the curriculum and see how we're going to adjust it and how many people we have apply, that's when I'll make our final decision on how long it'll be.
Sheriff, this question is more for Undersheriff, and if you could please answer in Spanish.
I'll try.
¿Qué es con algo que se han encontrado al llegar a su administración que les gustaría cambiar de inmediato? Quizás sea algo repetitivo que ya respondieron, pero si pudiera responderlo usted, por favor, en español.
Yo creo que es la representación que tenemos nosotros ahora como departamento. Por ejemplo, para mí personalmente, el tener la oportunidad de tener esta posición, más que hacerlo acerca mío, es para iluminar a la comunidad que estamos representando nosotros. Tener la reflexión de que tenemos una diversa, básicamente, raza como altos niveles de funcionarios en este departamento es una demostración de la comunidad que nosotros estamos protegiendo. Entonces yo lo tomo personalmente como un desafío, no para mí. Quiero ser un buen representante para la comunidad hispana, pero más como una oportunidad para la comunidad hispana que estamos sirviendo, de que sepan de que siempre se puede lograr más, de que tenemos un representante, por lo menos ahora, gracias a Sheriff Allen, de poder darme la oportunidad a mí. Pero es cambiar un poco la mentalidad de la comunidad. No tenemos muy buena relación anteriormente con la comunidad hispana, especialmente con los inmigrantes. Siempre había un poco de terror a lo que tenía que ver con la relación entre los inmigrantes y el departamento de policía o el departamento del sheriff. Entonces creo que ahora, por lo más que yo he tratado, por el tiempo que tuve la oportunidad de ser un vocero del departamento para la comunidad hispana, es mucho más impactante haciéndolo desde esta posición. Entonces es un desafío personal de comunicar mucho más con la comunidad hispana, de poder, otra parte donde podemos sacar más oficiales para que vengan a trabajar el departamento. Creo que tenemos en este momento 3 o 4 oficiales en el departamento de nosotros que hablan español fluidamente. No puede ser así. Estando sirviendo en una comunidad que el 90% casi son hispanos, y la mayoría de esos tenemos miles de inmigrantes en nuestra comunidad. Lo quiero tomar como desafío a las personas, a los jóvenes que se quieran unir a nuestro departamento, de que ahora tienen un representante que van a tener todo el respaldo de nosotros, pero sí tenemos que crecer mucho más que sea una reflexión entre la comunidad y nuestro departamento. Lo están viendo ahora con tenerme a mí en esta posición, pero poder incrementar eso mucho más y poder tener una mejor relación con la comunidad hispana. Personalmente, yo tengo una súper buena relación con el Consulado de México y con la cónsul, con la embajadora, relaciones que van desde años. Y este era un momento que estábamos esperando todos para poder decir, como comunidad hispana, sí triunfamos. Tenemos una persona, pero como le digo anteriormente, no es acerca mío. Esto es para que la comunidad se sienta representada y poder dar a la comunidad el impulso y el poder de poder juntarse a nosotros.
Gracias.
Can we get a version of that in English? That was so awesome. I got bits and pieces of that. You said there's only 4 officers who are fluent in Spanish?
We have about 4 officers who are 100% bilingual, and that can happen. And this representation of this executive staff is specifically the message that Sheriff Allen wanted to send to everybody. We are a multicultural community, and that needs to be reflected from every level of government. It needs to be reflected in our department. Having the first African-American sheriff, it is a big deal. Having the highest ranked female in this department, it is a big deal. Hispanic. We have Aaron, who also represents the other side of the cultural aspect and race. So for me, it's not about me of being the first immigrant. It's about the community that we serve. It's for the community to feel that they have a representative, that they are represented in our department, because it is the community that we serve. So as I was saying, it's a challenge. I'm putting it as a challenge to the immigrant community, to the Latino community, that now that they feel that representation, we need more Latinos in our department. We need more people. The fact that we serve over 90% of Hispanic community, but we only have 4 fluent bilingual deputies in this department, that can't happen. We need to have more people who are bilingual, and we need to have more representation in our department. So for all of those immigrants who are able to apply for our department. We need more of you. We need to have more bilingual people, and it's a task on them. Because as a Latino, as an immigrant, our mind always goes to complain and to not always actually take charge of it. So that's my challenge to them, that we need to start working on it, that we need to start being more outspoken, but that comes with work. And for all of you that are watching, that's what we need. We need more representation of Hispanic community in our department.
Sheriff, are you the first African-American sheriff for the department in its history?
Yes, I am.
What does that mean to you?
A lot. Not only for the community where I come from, it also shows just like some of my nephews and my nieces that they can do this with hard work also. My mom and dad always told me because I was an African American, I'd have to work harder than everybody else. Whether people agree with that or not, my thing is just everybody work hard and have a good work ethic. But it opens the door for other people, for my community. I need more African Americans in this department. Again, just like Under Sheriff Jareno said, more to represent our community. When I was running for this office, the big question was like, hey, why do our deputies not look like us or the community? Why do you guys not show tattoos? Why do you guys not have beards? All those questions. And it really made me think, and I never run on race, I never do, but I realize how important it is for my community and the representation that it does bring. And the African American community was like, hey, who do we contact at the Sheriff's Department for us? And I said, me. And that made me really proud. Specifically growing up here and the multicultural, like Under Sheriff Jareno said, it's just awesome to answer your question. It really is.
And Sheriff, if we can go back to party patrol, because I remember talking to Chief Medina about this months ago. It was a thing in the past. He doesn't want to bring it back. He doesn't have staffing for it. You're also facing a staffing crisis. How do you, if that's an idea you're thinking in your head, how does that become reality? If that's something that you want, have you talked to the city about it? Have you talked to county commissioners about it? When you hear the word party patrol, everyone's ears perks in this city. So talk to me a little bit about that.
We've started the conversation, and Chief Medina and I have not had a conversation specific to that. I've had some interest from senators and some representatives that asked me if I was interested in it. My whole thought process is, why is everything not on the table, and why are we not looking at it to see what works and what failed in the past? When you look at why I would bring party patrol, it really does bother me. I've done specific homicides myself to where children were killed because of what was going on at that party, and a lot of parents and family had no clue or idea where their family was, and they were giving them a death notification. Whether or not I can do that with the manpower that we have, yes, it requires a lot of manpower. I will never overstretch our department to do all the programs that John Allen wants. Again, and I use this word and I'll overuse it, how do we do it efficiently? Once we start getting our numbers up, I think that's something that it can possibly come to fruition. But I also understand all the controversy that came along with it, civil rights violations, things of that nature. How do we not relive the past, correct it, and make it a better program?
Do you think party patrol could hinder these shootings? I know there was a year or two ago where we covered a Halloween shooting that killed 3 young high schoolers. The family didn't know until they reached out to us. No detective talked to them, said their son was dead. They reached out to us and we found out a name. So do you think it could help stop these shootings at these parties if you were to do it, and give family a little bit of closure?
I think it could, and I want to go back to just, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's policing 101 on being proactive and being preventative policing. If they knew that there was a party patrol out looking for it, and then, it's going to go, we were all in high school, and I went to West Mesa, one of the greatest schools ever. At the same time, you hear, hey, we're having this party, but party patrol might be out, we might need to move it. But at the same time, that can come to tell people the dangers of going to parties. I know looking at some of these homicides that the Albuquerque Police Department had, it's not like these children were going to do anything nefarious. They were going to a party. Maybe they were doing some things they weren't supposed to be doing, but not saying, oh man, you know what, I'm going to be murdered and killed tonight because of a rival gang or someone shooting through the doors and the windows. At the same time, underage drinking, the DWI problem that we have. I work closely with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Party patrol can also branch out to so many other preventative things to prevent crime, notify families, be more transparent with them, let them know that we're out there, and for them to have a focus and a contact. Maybe even go talk to their child. That's community stuff that we talk about. Hey, you probably shouldn't do this. I tell my kid when he went to Volcano Vista, don't go to any of those parties, son, because they're dangerous, and he didn't. And then look at what we're seeing now. And specifically to him, he's had 2 or 3 friends of his own that have been murdered at parties. So it also hits closely home to me, so I understand where those families are coming from, to not only have information, but to bring closure.
What message, it seems like you come in and you're a high-tempo guy,
Mhm.
and what message would you have to these violent criminals out in the community? How are you gonna, this is your pitch to them to say, be on the lookout?
We're coming. So, like I said, there's too many victims of violent crime and homicide, even property crimes. Just sitting here and seeing when I was training at CNM, seeing what my brothers and sisters are going through at every department around the state, and the resources they don't have, or things that were adversarial to where deputies or law enforcement officers couldn't get resources or not working together. My irritation was, why aren't we working together? And that also includes the fire department. I see one back here, and medical staff. We're all first responders. I'm tired of it, man. I really am. It hits more on a personal note of it for me. I've had victims in my own family of violent crime. It pisses me off, and we need to do something about it. And like I said, I can talk about it all day. I'm honestly, and you said I'm a high-tempo guy. Before getting elected to the seat, I was like, I love the ceremony I'm having for our family. Let's get going. We need to have actionable results, and I know that it's not difficult to achieve, because you need to create a path to where you don't create hurdles yourself, and that is with the collaboration with different departments. We need to move forward. People are sick and tired of the crime, and I'm not saying that Sheriff Allen is coming here and we're going to solve it in day 1, 2, or 3. It's going to take a little bit of time, but in that, speaking in those terms, everybody doesn't want to hear me say, man, John, you're talking about a long-term goal. No, people want to know what can happen today and tomorrow, and that's what we're doing, and that's where I talk about, and I look at the cameras, we need more people in law enforcement. We need more dispatchers. We need more firefighters. We need more EMS personnel. I'm telling you, this job is rewarding to serve your community. I guarantee you that you will be satisfied with it.
Do you plan on getting in with any, outside entities about the, probably the hardest problem we have, not problem, like that's a wrong word, situation we have is our homeless situation. Is there any ideas or interest in working with outside entities on getting more people on the streets to control this, or do you have any ideas that you're going to be running through?
Running through it, I'll try to leave it more in something that we deal with every day. I'm looking at the ACS department with the Albuquerque Police Department. So to give you a sample in a scenario, we see that in house, and I'm kind of a weird cat. And what I mean by that is I do a lot of surveillance off duty. So I go and look, and I went to Central and Tramway, Central Wyoming, different parts of the city, and I actually went out and talked to people that were unhoused. And I said, what's going on? Why are you unhoused? And a lot of them, drug addiction. Some people, and we can talk about, hey, we're going to give you resources, that way you can succeed. If you talk to many of them, they don't want help. But again, I told them, if you don't want help and you're committing crime, we don't want you out on the streets victimizing everybody. I went to Central by Nob Hill and watched at the bus stop 3 people openly smoking meth. I sat down here downtown and watched people openly injecting heroin into their veins with no police presence or no help at all. So my question was, I'm a solution-oriented person, is if we go to a person and they're smoking meth, obviously they're committing a crime and we have to enforce our laws. That's what law enforcement does. But at the same time, I also understand we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. If this person, and we arrest him, goes to the Metropolitan Detention Center and we arrest him, it's not my job to keep him in. A judge is going to probably release them. How do we make sure it's not a revolving door and we're doing it again 2 or 3 hours later? We can arrest and arrest and arrest. I totally understand that. But are we addressing the root cause for them to be successful within our community? There's arrest procedures which help, and some people need to go to jail. We can't be afraid to say that. But at the same time, there's also treatment and things that people do actually need help for. And there's some people out there that because of COVID, they lost their jobs, they're just completely unhoused and have no resources at all. And we can't look down, as homelessness is not a crime. At the same time, what life aspect and what problems are those persons going through? And I talk about also behavioral health. Behavioral health at the same time of people self-medicating with narcotics. That's something we can't have. That is a gateway to the violent crime problems that we're seeing. And if anyone disagrees with me, They're full of crap, because I'm telling you, they've seen it. If you've been in law enforcement for a while, you go to property crimes, narcotics, they're gonna start going to higher crime, not just because they're empowered. They will do anything to suffice their fix and do anything to get the narcotics that they need. We have to put a stopgap to it. We have to look at every avenue. To answer your questions more directly, we have to work with everybody, and that's where I'm talking about building the social network here at the Sheriff's Department. But there's also ACS, and I don't want to disrespect them, great program. They answer calls for service. That's a little bit of patchwork for a first responder. What is the long-term goal for that person to get the resources? At the same time, I keep talking about resources for our deputies. And Mark's here. You can't tell me that a police officer wants to go to the same down and out, somebody that's intoxicated, and the same guy you've been dealing with over and over and over again, or someone with a behavioral health problem, with someone that has better training to make sure we're de-escalating and not coming to a deadly force confrontation, or not hanging out with that particular person at the hospital for 9 hours when I can be answering priority 1 calls. That's something I look out for everything to make sure, once again, that we are running efficiently.
Message to property owners that are dealing with the situation, Evan?
Property owners, we're going to help them. We have, after this, we have so many things to do. We have business roundtables, and we're trying to, I want their ideas and their problems. I know there's a lot. I want to hear their issues. Can you imagine being a property owner, just not only owning a home like all of you, but a business to where you have an unhoused and they're doing things in front of your business, and people don't even want to go into that business that hits their bottom line of, economic development, which I thought about. But how do we do that, and how do we address that also with humanity? We have to be human, show humanity and show compassion for people, doing it the correct way, and make sure there's different avenues, and deputies have different resources to also have that discretion. You know what, I need to arrest this person, or I have arrested this person multiple times for the same thing, for heroin. They obviously need help. I need to use the LEAD program, and I need to take them to the care center over here off of Zuni. Deputies need to have those avenues and resources to make that decision for themselves. That is also part of community policing, to where they have the tools and someone that they see every day to address that issue and problem.
Thank you.
Sheriff, if I could just make a suggestion, when you do your warrant roundups, you invite us media partners to maybe ride along with you. It solves the live PD portion of it.
Mark, I think you just went back in the action. I saw you. No, I do, and like I said, I did it before, and I discussed it before. America's Most Wanted came out here in a homicide, and for me, and you can, I won't speak for my executive staff, but I don't want to say you all are irritating. I love all of you. But for me, I focus on the job, and I worry about your safety. But I like that intent of, people are saying that I'm not being transparent because I got rid of Op Live, which is completely away from the truth, but I understand their feelings, and I'm compassionate towards them. But I understand that they want access towards it. Great idea. And like I said, we're asking you to bring ideas, and we're looking at all this. Very important to us.
So is it safe to say there's a new sheriff in town?
It is safe to say there's a new sheriff in town. And like I said, as you can see the smile, I'm so excited, I really am. But I also understand that there's a huge job to do. I also understand that any positive or negative thing that comes to this department or community ultimately falls on me, and I'm all about extreme ownership. And like I said, it's not all the credit that goes to me, it's all the people that work for us and our executive staff. We want to make sure as an executive staff we're providing those resources and tools. And then when something bad happens or controversial, that I'm able to answer all of you. There's going to be tough questions, I know it's coming, and there already is Op Live. That we address those appropriately, and you know where I'm coming from. I always want to be upfront. I'm a very upfront person. Sometimes I have to tone it down, so I'm not as offensive. My wife gets on me all the time, but I'm very upfront, so if I offend you later, I apologize in advance.
One last question. Is also, Mr. Jariño, are you the first immigrant as an undersheriff?
Sí, señor.
Gracias.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
See you
I
soon.
like how you're all former PIOs.
One thing that I'll
Sí.